We like to talk motoring on a Thursday on BBC Essex Drive Time. We call it Full Throttle Thursday because we couldn't come up with a better title, to be honest. And tonight, we're not being joined by our regular guest, Maria McCarthy. We've got a motoring lawyer in the studio with me. He's worked as a motorist solicitor for about 30-odd years. His name is David Barton. He's represented hundreds of clients right across the country, quite frankly. Good to see you here tonight, David.
Good evening.
We thought it'd be good to speak to you because, we've got a few stories around that we'll look at in a minute, but there are changes to motoring law coming into force at the beginning of next month. And this means, people have to be careful, not only if they're taking drugs, naughty drugs, but also not so naughty drugs.
Yes, prescription as well as illegal drugs. Right at the beginning of March, this has been in the pipeline since 2013. It's the Crime and Courts Act, which was passed in 2013, but it will come into force fully right at the beginning of March, and it creates a new offence of driving or attempting to drive a vehicle with certain stated drugs in the blood or in your urine above the legal limit for those drugs, and they vary from drug to drug. So the law divides them into illegal ones, cannabis, LSD and others, and those that are prescribed or which you would perhaps purchase over the counter.
And what sort of those drugs would they be? Would they be the ones that would have a warning on the label saying, do not drive if feeling drowsy, that sort of thing?
Exactly those. People who have prescribed or supplied drugs in blood or urine above the limits that are permitted will have a defence if they show that they took them in accordance with doctor's instructions or they read the label properly. But if they didn't, if they don't follow those prescriptions and they're above the legal limit, they will face a disqualification. Goodness.
So if you got hold of, or if you bought a cold remedy or something for a chesty cough, yes, say, and you took too much,
yes,
and then you had an accident, even if that wasn't necessarily the result of the accident.
That's exactly what will happen, because up until now, the police have only been able to prosecute people who have been unfit. In other words, their driving has been affected in some way. But the new offence will enable them to, if appropriate, to require the provision of blood or urine. And even if not unfit, there's an excess in the blood or urine, then they'll face a prosecution. So people need to be, particularly those of us who decide to doze up and go to work, tough it out for a day, it has the potential to be really very awkward.
I guess, any drive to try and reduce the number of accidents on our roads is great, and some of these things that you take do make you feel pretty groggy, so maybe it's going to make people think twice about driving.
It will do. It's aimed primarily at people who take illegal drugs, but in such quantities that the driving's not affected. And the problem the police have had is having a method by which illegal drugs can be measured accurately. There's a swathe of new equipment that's being provided, but they've always had to prove that someone's driving was affected, unlike alcohol. If you're over the legal limit, driving affected or not, the offence is committed.
Yeah.
And drugs has simply now caught up with that.
Right, and that's March the 2nd, those changes come into motoring law. When it comes to dangerous driving, I guess you've represented a fair few people on dangerous driving charges in your 30 years. I always think of dangerous driving, if you hear, someone's been done for dangerous driving, you think it's to do with the way they have been driving.
Yes.
But not just that.
Very often it is the way they have been driving, but it doesn't have to be. If the driving is perhaps just a little careless, but nonetheless involves an accident, and if there's alcohol in the body, it's the condition of the driver with alcohol in him or her that elevates it from careless to dangerous. Likewise, if the vehicle is in a dangerous condition, defective brakes, defective steering, something hanging off, so that the vehicle itself is inherently dangerous, then bad driving can be elevated to dangerous just because of the condition of the vehicle. So it's not just the manner of driving.
So a damaged wiper blade, for example, could see you, getting points on your licence if you're unlucky enough to be in an accident.
It's possible. It would have to, with a defective vehicle, it would have to be something, I think, far more serious than that. It would be brakes, steering...
bald tyres.
Bald tyres, vehicles that have been involved in an accident and badly repaired.
Right. It's scary when you think about it.
Yes.
And you know,
and I don't think people do.
We all sit here and we say, you know, we should check these things, and you know, hopefully this will serve as a reminder for people just to double check the tyres, double check things are working, lights are working, that kind of thing. There can be no defence really for our final story tonight, David. Although, you know, I guess you would have to try and find one if you were representing these people. We've seen news today out about the people, the worst speeding drivers of last year, and this is absolutely shocking. The fastest speeding driver last year was on the M25 in Kent, 146 miles an hour in a 70 limit. 146.
I know it is extraordinary.
It's shocking, isn't it? I mean, people say, why do cars go that fast? I mean, you know, that's the nature of them, isn't it? And of course, you know, if you go to Germany, I think is it still de-restricted in Germany?
I believe it is.
Yeah, for the autobahns.
But that's over twice the legal limit.
That's shocking.
The courts are going to have no hesitation in imposing a significant period of disqualification for that.
And I mean, how on earth anyone?
I think I'd struggle to.
Well, you would struggle to represent someone with that case, wouldn't you? Well, you'd struggle with this one. This one caught my eye the most out of the worst speeding drivers released today. 128 miles an hour on the A22 in West Sussex. The stretch of road was actually a 30 limit. 128 in a 30.
Well, I would expect somebody doing a speed excess of that amount to face not a speeding summons, but actually a charge of dangerous driving, because if you drive at a dangerously high speed, which that speed in a 30 undoubtedly would be, I would expect the police to charge dangerous, and that carries imprisonment, a lengthy term of imprisonment, a lengthy disqualification, which a conventional speeding summons just won't do justice to it.
Well, I mean, I imagine that the person was caught on a camera, so one of the camera was quick enough, wasn't it?
Well, about 2 years ago, I represented a motorcyclist at 160, and he faced a dangerous driving summons, dangerous driving charge, not speeding, and he was very lucky to escape prison.
I think he was. Dear, oh dear. Let's hope he learnt.
So these speeds are just extraordinary.
Shocking. David, good to speak to you. Thank you for taking us through the changes to the law. We should all have to be careful of that if we're dosing up for our coughs and colds from the beginning of March. David Barton, a motoring solicitor for some 30-odd years. Safe journey back home for you tonight, David.